The scene is set in the bowels of the Rossellini Manor, amidst the throng of humanity. The ball, hosted by the Giovanni family. John Stanhope mingles amongst the crowd, shaking hands and making polite conversation. He has just finished his meeting with Ewan Dunstan. He considers what the Giovanni has said certainly profitable. John wasn't in the habit of throwing away profitable endeavours. As long as the Giovanni could behave more in accordance with his wishes, why not indulge them? It seems that Dunstan at least understands the game. This John can work with. He doesn't need them to be best friends or public allies. He just needs them to cooperate. He smiles when he sees the throng of New Sarum beneath him. Many faces he recognizes, some he's only heard about, drifting around from table to table with a smile. Simple matter, commenting on the wine, a lady's dress, a gentleman's suit, all while perpetuating the image of a wealthy philanthropist, a man well known for his charity and his generosity in rebuilding the city. He puts kindred politics aside. They will play themselves out, and it is surely in the Giovanni's court now. John, if anything, was a reactionary. He improvised more than he planned. His sire often berated him for it. But with the ever-changing landscape of New Sarum politics, it was the only way to survive. He will blow whichever way the wind takes him, and keep his power. But tonight is not about kindred politics. It is about him re-establishing control. He spots around the buffet cart his guest for the evening, Miss Scarlet. Already she has been doing the work for him in her usual fashion. He smiles. She was very much the typical ambitious young woman, career-driven. Gold digger, some called her. John simply admired the woman's gusto. He smiles and heads over to her, links arm in arm. She excitedly points out all the various dignitaries that she has met and shaken hands with, feeding him the gossip he needed to be able to put them into his web. She exasperates at the fact that many of the guests, while in their inebriated state, had either propositioned her or were so gauche as to place a hand upon her ass. John noted these down for reparations later. John couldn't abide rudeness in any form, especially to one that he holds as his ally. And so he moves around, guided by Miss Wetherell. Scarlet shows him who those he needs to speak to, and he starts working his influence. First, he needs to re-establish his connection to the police. This was a police ball, and there were many up-and-comers here waiting for the chance of promotion. He begins to make sure that all assembled are aware of his presence, to see him as someone of charm and delectability, of class and of wealth that they wish to be near. Activating his awe, 2 successes, he gets a good-sized crowd, beginning to work along the system, making sure all know that these two were people that needed to be talked to, needed to be networked with. As John parlays about a particular period of current events or politics, he looks over to see Mr. Dunson nervously speaking to a rather gaunt-looking man. He was curious. The man seemed to be of some import, but he cannot place him, had no idea where he fit in the whole scheme of the city. Something to be noted, but nothing to be done right now. He begins to single out those that he wishes to speak to, those with burning ambition or higher drives, lesser officers, lieutenants, just getting their first taste of the high life, the ones that can see the distance, that look enviously up at those above them. And he begins his manipulation and subterfuge. With 2 successes, he singles out a few of the officers, uses Miss Scarlet to his full advantage, allowing her easy manner and attractive physique to weaken them to his designs. A few carefully placed words would dominate. Was enough to establish a secondary meeting. He notes down their flaws, their weaknesses, which sins they particularly note for, 2 of which seem more susceptible to others, and he will meet with them in another night, away from Giovanni's eyes. He moves then on to those with the money, the lobbyists, the industrialists, the financiers, those with money and ties, whose greed pours out of them like grease from their fat paws. He works his magic on them as well. They keep with their cliques and their circles, not wishing to speak to John. Most of his businesses are under the table, and he just seems like some wealthy eccentric with no head for business. But despite this, he knows and notes their names, where their holdings are, listens in to what deals they're making, and where their interests lie. He sees one of the prospective politicians, one of the many people he's noted down already in his research to take over Town Hall. John will roll his charisma and politics this time, in an attempt to appear more notable, or at least much more interested as a benefactor for high-risers in the political scene. Someone to be a friend, to perhaps support financially someone's particular campaign run. He has much more success. Terms are coming up. Bills, promises need to be kept. Politicians all rally behind him, hoping, looking at his bank balance and his check, his expensive Iconian suit. and they wish to muscle in, thinking they are the ones that are trying to manipulate him with their morals, with their visions for the city. They will do nicely. The aides and the speechwriters, the minor politicians, they all flock to him. More meetings, a little bit more persuasion, but the steps are there. And finally, one of the easiest, re-establishing his connection to the high society. It'll simply be a charisma empathy role. To appear charming, sophisticated, a man of great taste and wealth, truly one of their number. He will speak of his time as a sommelier, his interests in wine, in suits, in little things that don't truly matter. With 4 successes, being seen in a place like this is just as good as what you say or what you do, and John has made an impression. A $50,000 suit, a beautiful woman on his arm, and he is so utterly charming. He will be gaining a lot of invitations in the recent nights to the new balls, galas, get-togethers, wine tastings, all sorts to establish himself as much of the rich and powerful of the city. The night wears on. He has made good progress. No great leaps and strides. It was too public a place, and he does not wish the Giovanni to understand how he operates behind closed doors. And so he leaves, with a smile on his face, as the car brought round with the woman on his arm. He sees within her the ambition. John blesses the day that he has learnt all specs, able to scan a room, to feel the waves of sin amongst them, being able to tell tale their lust, their greed, their desire, most importantly, their ambition. It was intoxicating. The gamut of human sin was rife. All. They might as well have presented themselves in chains and shackles, waiting to be pulled. Nothing but marionettes to John's designs. So engorged is he in his own political machinations and his own plans, that the beast riles within him, uncoils in his heart, and he feels the hunger. He needs a sensation to top the evening off. Perhaps the Toreador influence is finally rubbing off on him. And so, within the car, driving Miss Scarlet home, he gives in to that emotion. Never before have their relationship been anything more than business, a mutually beneficial relationship. But his hunger demands. And so he looks into her eyes and tells her to be very still. His fangs descend and they reach upon her wrist, biting deep, feeling the blood and the vitae soak through him. He feels her glorious ambition, the hotness of the blood against his cold, dead mouth, and it fills and revitalizes him. He hasn't fed like this for a while. He takes his fill and then looks at her in the eyes and begins describing in perfect detail the exact conversation that they are having right now. He replaces in her mind the image that she has cut her hand. Her arm was unfortunately slashed when a stray wine glass fell from her grasp and smashed upon the floor. He's taking her to one of his blood banks to get it checked out. Tetanus is a dangerous thing, and such a wound should not be untreated. John is nothing but a kind soul, and a doctor at that. At least, he was. He easily writes over her memories. It may nag at her a little, but he is far too good at manipulating memories now to allow it to change. He feels revigorated. A live vessel is a luxury he rarely indulges himself with, but he always has to take precautions due to his defect. He takes Miss Scarlet into the hospital and makes sure that the best care is given to her. The arm is bandaged and antibiotics are given so that it doesn't get infected. He will roll his intelligence and medicine to make sure that he hasn't accidentally seriously injured his ally in his moment of weakness. At least one success. She'll be woozy for the next few days, but John's doctor's the best, and she has the money. And so does John to have the best medical care man can buy. But he does leave the impression, the slight whisper, the subconscious thought that she had a good time, that she enjoys his company. He does not want another misstep of his words or her overflated ego to allow him to be shut out of the high society of New Serum again. He needs his pawns in place, and if they can't move when he tells them, they are useless to him. And he's not ready to get rid of such a useful pawn just now. Full. The blood still coursing in him. Feels satisfied. The beast is sated. His own lust for power sated. His ego is sated. For all the risk that he has just taken, this was a good day.